Hello, welcome back. I have in the studio with me Sister Denise, who's taking us through the deep and unending subject of karma, choice, and destiny. Sister Denise, it's always a pleasure to have you here in the studio with me. Today we will be looking at the aspect of choices. It's rather unnerving for most individuals to be able to have to sit down and make a decision about important directions in which their lives are changing or about to change. And sometimes we have a choice as to whether we'd like to make a decision or not, and sometimes life places us in a position where we do not have a choice. There's emotions at play, there's other people's opinions at play, there's factors from life giving us directions or lack thereof. How does one know which way to go?
Yeah, the main thing in this situation is risk, because you cannot know in advance what the outcome is going to be. So the more you know about the philosophy of karma, the more intuitive you are about what's going on here and the hidden layers of it, the easier it is to make a wise decision. There are, in different cultures, different sayings. For example, it is said, never make a decision when you're angry. In other cultures, it said, never make a decision when you're happy. Because your decision will be influenced by your emotion. And a decision which is influenced by an emotion is unlikely to be wise. So a decision that's made in stillness, that's made where you're very neutral about everything, is likely to be a much better decision, because no matter what, you do not know what's going to happen in the next second. Everything could collapse. A lot of decisions are to do with who you're going to live with in your life, because human beings are social. It's not very healthy to live totally alone, or you may live totally alone, but you have a lot of interaction with people. But many people, they live in families. And there's a lot of karma that happens in families. This is why you get a lot of dysfunctional families. Most people, they get married at a certain point in time, they get children, they have their work, their business, or whatever. This is normal life, Not everybody's normal, I know. Both of us are not run-of-the-mill people by any means, but we still live, we still have life, we have our friends, we have all these things going on. But we are unusually free, which is nice. That's a choice. And if you want to decide, okay, who you're going to live with or get married with, then you have to look at, you're not just getting married to one person, you're getting married to a whole set of people who are their relatives, getting married to a culture. If you go into a different culture, you have to deal with that. So generally speaking, people like to make safe decisions, but if you make a safe decision, then you may be going against your heart. But if you go with your heart, there's more risk. So you calculate these things. No matter what, you cannot know. Whoever you decide to make your life with, they might die. You have a child, you think, okay, this child will be with me for the rest of my life. They might die. You might die. Anything can happen. There is so much that is unknown that you have to take a risk, but as calculated as possible. And make sure that the decision is coming from a place of stability, wisdom, and that you're willing to handle any unexpected price that may come with it, because there's always a price. You get an advantage, and you also pay a price. So you have to make sure that you're able to enjoy the advantage and pay the price.
So coming back to what you said earlier, is it ever a good idea to make a decision when you're emotional?
Well, I don't think it's a good idea because you're not dispassionate. When you make a decision in a state of emotion, usually you will regret it. You know, sometimes people make, as a judge, you will know there's crime of passion. In the moment, you go out of control and you kill someone or throw them out of the window or whatever it happens to be, because you're very disturbed and your intellect doesn't work, you're disconnected from your conscience, and you make a very stupid decision. So it's always a very good policy to wait. Just delay. You're not going to lose anything by delaying. And make a decision in the cold light of day, as they say. And then it will be much more sensible.
You know what comes to mind right now is the very high divorce rate across the entire globe. I mean, each and every country has its own statistics, but the divorce rate across the entire globe is phenomenally high. You see, when people are in love, and I use those words in air quotes, they make a decision to spend their lives with another person based on their feelings. I once heard a priest say that no person actually who gets married does so with the intention of divorcing someday. Every person who says I do, in whichever language, in whichever religion, does so with the thought this is going to be permanent. But then, 1 year later, 2 years later, 30 years later, things go pear-shaped. How does one know?
Again, I would go back to it's a big risk and you don't know. If you make a decision while you're in the ecstasy and the craziness of being in love, this thing called being in love is karma. It's a very strong magnetic attraction that brings people together. And if you know this, then when you find yourself in love, you will know that, wait a minute, there's danger here, there's settlement of karma coming along, and you have to really be very cool if you decide, okay, I'm in love with this person, I want to make a life with this person, let me not do anything about it until you can say the honeymoon of being in love has quietened down, because it always does. And I think it's a very wise idea to engage in the relationship for some time, just to see how it pans out. If you get married right away, and then after a year you find out all sorts of other things, that means it was like what they call it, shotgun marriage. No, you don't do that. When you're thinking about your whole life, you're thinking, do my sanskaras match with this person? Do I match? Does my family match with this person's family? Is my income adequate? Is the other person's income adequate? Is it balanced? All of these very down-to-earth things you need to take into consideration. However, when a person is in that enthusiasm of being in love, which can last for quite some time, you are looking at the thing through rose-colored spectacles. What you perceive at that moment is very different from what you see when you take off those rose-colored spectacles. You have to be very, very careful about making decisions about when you're in love. Can that love go through all the different stages? You have the strong emotion, you have the sexual attraction, you have this feeling that, oh, this is the only one for me. I never experienced something like this before. Okay, very good. But you will have some karma with this person. Now, how is that karma? Is it a debt? Is it like something that will keep you together in a very deep and stable, steady way? Are you equipped to go through all of the different things that happen in a relationship? Because a relationship is very up and down. There are many things involved that you have to be able to deal with and cross many difficulties, obstacles. Are you ready for that? Okay, you mentioned before, after 30 years the marriage can be finished. It can. We would say either it's your role has finished, your part has finished. Sometimes the settlement of karma, when it finishes, you part ways because there's nothing to hold you together. It can also happen similarly for business partner. You have a business partner, you have to trust them, they have to have the amount of money anticipated, you have to have your side, whatever. The business may work well or may not work well. Business is a risk. Marriage is a kind of business. There's so many things that are unknown. I think you have to be really solid and stable in yourself and not anticipate that this relationship or this business partnership is going to be your saving grace and make you into something good. We cannot be dependent like that. That won't work.
I want to come back to something that you alluded to in an earlier episode. And this doesn't only apply to marriage, it applies to relationships per se. You said that if you find yourself attracted to another human being, it means that there is a karmic account waiting to unfold. Now, unfortunately, the vast majority of people on the planet have a rather romantic view of that setup, where there's an assumption that if you are attracted to somebody, that this means happiness. Romance equals happiness. That is the mindset of most of the planet. Okay, that's why fools rush in where angels fear to tread. What is that exactly? What is attraction to another human being?
Well, we would have to say attraction is karma. You can be attracted physically, you will be attracted physically, but that is like a trick of nature to get people together who have some account to settle. And so when you find yourself strongly attracted, keep this red flag in mind. There's karma here. I have to tread carefully and not be a fool. If I want to be an angel and fear to tread there, but I may want to see what there is. So I go in there knowing that there's a risk and knowing that I have to take care of myself behind it. Then okay. But don't expect it to be this fairy tale. And we are surrounded by the sort of Disney version of Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, all of this stuff. Boy meets girl, live happily ever after. It's a fairy tale. Any relationship, you have to go through many things. They have to be renegotiated every time the situation changes, which it does from time to time. And it's work, you know. Are you prepared to put in the work to make the relationship work?
When it comes to the aspect of making choices, I find that many individuals don't trust themselves to make the right choice, the right decision. And this is why they make the wrong one. And this includes seeking the counsel of people who don't necessarily have their best interests at heart. How does one go about making the right choice so that you ensure that the consequences of your choice are beneficial for you?
Making good choices is very much connected with following the voice of conscience. When people don't follow the voice of conscience, your conscience becomes dysfunctional. And that's why you seek counsel of other people. In a way, you give away your power to those that you seek counsel from, and they don't have your best interest in mind, they have their own best interest in mind. The main problem is that why you don't trust yourself is because you have not had a good relationship with your conscience over a long period of time. You have betrayed yourself many times, and so you can't trust yourself. So this is something that has to be repaired, and you can repair that by beginning from now to listen to the voice of conscience and follow it. Because then from being dysfunctional, it gradually becomes functional. If you disregard your conscience long enough, your conscience is going to say, well, you're on your own, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. You don't care about me, so I don't care about you. It's a karma with your own self, you know. To repair that and start to listen to the voice of conscience means that you have to make yourself strong. So this kind of weakness, this lack of moral fiber, you can say, causes the person to again and again get themselves into trouble because, again, I would put it as stupid, you know. People think that someone else is going to do your work for you. Someone else is going to make your good decisions for you. They just never want to be self-responsible. They never want to be accountable for what they do. This is cowardice. Many people are in that situation, but there is no solution other than start from now, being real, being true to yourself, listening to your conscience. Just make some decisions with the connection of your conscience and gradually repair it. And if you can't make a decision, then don't, you know, wait, because if you do make a decision when you're just not able, you'll make a bad decision. And if you make bad decisions, then you have to repair them. Sometimes it's very difficult, very costly. So meditation is good for this, because meditation means you're putting yourself on the line, you're facing yourself, is very important. You're facing your cowardice, your weakness, your ego, whatever it is, and you're dealing with it. And if you don't do that, you cannot grow, you cannot prosper, you cannot advance.
There are individuals who are aware of the law of karma, but when it comes to, you know, making choices and facing the consequences, prefer to ignore the consequences. And how does that adage go? None is so blind as he who chooses not to see. What is the result of that?
Well, you would say, you know, this person knows the laws of karma. Maybe they know it like the 2 times table, you know, just by rote. But they don't really know, because if they would really know, they would live by it. And if they would live by it, they cannot ignore it at the time when it really needs to be taken into consideration.
You raise an extremely important point, because the vast majority of people on planet Earth know, in inverted commas, the law of karma. But what you're saying is they don't actually know it. So they know the words, and that's it.
Right.
So knowing the law of karma means what?
If you say you know something but you don't act on it, it means you don't know.
Okay, so knowledge of the law of karma means practical application in behavior.
Yes. In all life situations, every single life situation, you will consult with yourself that what does the law of karma say about this situation? And you will think about it, you will act on it. You will never enter into any situation without bearing in mind you have to give the return. You know, many people give you something, you think, oh, this is so nice, how nice, everybody's so generous giving me the... You have to give the return. How can you not give the return? You put yourself in debt. You have to be aware of that. And don't take something that you can't give the return of.
That's curious because the world is full of takers. There are very few givers. A handful out of millions are givers. Most are,
This is one of the reasons why, for me, it's very important to have your primary relationship with God. Because God is the only one who can actually give and who doesn't demand anything in return. If you have a relationship with God, the return of your relationship with God is that you act according to the wisdom of God. That is the return. And this wisdom will enable you to interact with other people in a correct way. When you are in relationship with God, you are receiving. You receive the wisdom, you receive light, you receive many, many powers, qualities, virtues, everything you need. And then you're able to be a giver. We spoke earlier about how most people don't have that kind of relationship with God, which means that they're taking from people, places and things, which fail them, which give them so little. You do one thing for God, you receive multi-million in return. You can never give more than you receive. But in relationships with people, you may give a bit, and they may or may not give you the return, but pretty soon the credit runs out, because people are spiritually depleted.
Pretty soon the credit runs out. Relationships are accounts.
They are accounts.
There's a balance sheet.
There's a balance sheet.
Ooh. Okay, so every relationship, there's debits and credits.
Absolutely. That's what the law of karma is all about. It tells us it is a relationship of debit and credit, and you make sure that your interaction with people is mutually beneficial. But when you're a taker, then you're putting yourself into debt, which you cannot repay. Maybe there's lots of debt going on between people, which is really the fundamental reason why there is human suffering.
Not many people are aware of the account story. So what happens then if I continually make withdrawals from an account?
Well, you go in the red.
And then?
And then the bailiffs will come.
Oh.
You know, you will have to pay through, you lose everything, your relationships go bad, your health goes bad, suffering, suffering, suffering. Because the law of karma is everything has to be balanced. So when you go that far into the red, the bailiffs means the law of karma starts saying, okay, you have to pay. If you can't pay this way, pay that way. If you can't pay that way, pay another way. But whatever it is, you have to pay because the accounts have to be balanced. And the period of time that we're in at the moment is a very unusual period, historical period, where, according to the study that I do in Raj Yoga with the Brahma Kumaris, this is a time where everything has to be settled, because it's the end of the accounts year.
Well, this conversation can go on for a good few hours, but I think we'll bring it to an end for now, because all your answers simply elicit more questions, which I think we'll take up in another episode. So thank you, Sister Denise, and thank you at home for spending this half an hour with us. And I would invite you to look at your own life and ask yourself whether the decisions that you make, are they in the best interest of your own good karma or not? I think that's the question that Sister Denise is asking you to ask yourself. So thank you for this half an hour, and thank you for joining us. Take care and goodbye.